Richard, everyone's talking about a recession. Are we going to have a recession?
I don't know, Matt. Are we going to have a recession?
I don't know. Why would you ask an economist?
Everyone asks economists if we're going to have recessions. Has our profession got a very good track record of predicting if we're going to have recessions?
We have a terrible track record.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we'll have a recession, maybe we won't. No one really knows. But what's kind of happening? And, you know, why should Australians care about the world economy?
Well, I mean, the US has looked like it's straying into a recession. Europe's looking bad. The UK's looking bad under Truss and her mini budget that seems to have been rather reversed just recently.
Turned out Boris wasn't bad.
Oh, who would have thought, honestly? But yeah, look, I mean, the rest of the world and how well they're doing is important because we trade with the rest of the world.
So we sell our stuff to other countries, exports, and if their economies slow down, they buy less of our stuff.
That's right. But it's not a huge impact. I mean, most of the stuff we buy is made in Australia. But it will certainly have an impact, and it will make, I think economists like to call it, the economy fragile. It could be a turning point.
Fragile.
Fragile.
Scared little rabbit.
Yeah, exactly right. So will we fall into recession? Well, is there any data that says at the moment that we are?
Well, not really, but, you know, and we've actually got strong inflation, we've got low unemployment, but because the Reserve Bank, the central bank that sets interest rates, it's been pulling pretty hard on the interest rate brakes. It's been trying to slow the economy down, and the world economy is already slowing down. So not a lot of evidence that we're heading for a recession now, but more people worrying, did we pull on the brakes a bit too hard precisely at the time the rest of the world was starting to slow down?
Yeah, so it's not really up to the Treasurer or the Prime Minister about whether we go into recession at the moment. It's really down to the Reserve Bank Board and Philip Lowe, the Governor.
And the rest of the world.
And the rest of the world, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea that, you know, we elected government and they're good economic managers or bad economic managers is a bit silly, really, because firstly, the world economy has a big impact on ours. Not the only impact, but it's certainly one of the things that changes the most. And then secondly, it's the independent Reserve Bank, not politicians, that pull on that interest rate lever. So yeah, look, Labor's been elected at a pretty tricky time. High inflation, low real wages, slowing world economy, war in the Ukraine, maybe even climate change could be a problem, but, you know, not really talking about that at the moment, even though there's floods and lots of problems associated with floods and inflation. So yeah, unfortunately, not a great time to be managing the economy, but not a lot the government can do, except, drum roll please, they're about to have a budget.
Yeah, well, the budget is supposed to have a huge effect on the economy. Maybe the government can do something about the economy through the budget.
Well, they can, and so monetary policy is interest rates, you know, the Reserve Bank slowing the economy down, speeding it up. Fiscal policy is kind of budget policy. So the amount of money the government spends, the amount of tax the government collects, the things they spend it on, the things they tax it on. That's the combination of that taxing and spending. That's called fiscal policy, and that is one of the big things that government can use to influence the economy.
And it's a big thing the government's used just recently. During the pandemic, they spent big, they kept us afloat, they spent a lot of money, so rather than the economy contracting quickly and considerably, it didn't contract by nearly as much.
Yeah, basically what's called Keynesian economic stimulus worked. It worked a treat. When COVID hit, we had lockdowns, we had unemployment, and we had a lot of people that literally couldn't spend money, but also a lot of people that didn't want to spend money because they were worried what the future would look like. So even people who kept their jobs actually kept a bit of money in their pockets. Now, rather than that triggering a lot of unemployment, because if we're buying less stuff, someone's selling less stuff. Rather than let that happen, the former coalition government abandoned 30 years of rhetoric about we need to have a budget surplus.
I seem to remember before they were saying budget surplus is the only way to go, regardless of what happens.
Deficits ruin economies.
Yep.
But luckily, they admitted they'd been completely wrong for decades, spent hundreds of billions of dollars, which was good. Would have spent it on different things myself, but the spending worked. It kept the economy going through the crisis.
Drove the unemployment rate down to
record
40-year lows.
And, you know, think about it, we spent decades going, oh, if only there was a way to fix unemployment.
Yeah, what can we do, Richard?
Oh, there's nothing we can do, except the one thing that would have worked, and we did it, and it worked. But here we are now, newly elected government, high inflation, low wages, higher levels of debt because government borrowed to spend all that money, and now the government's a bit unsure. Should they keep stimulating the economy, especially as the world economy slows, or should they pay down the debt? So, Matt, you've got a crystal ball. What are they going to do?
Like every economist.
They've consulted with you. You've seen a draft of the budget.
Yeah, I wish. Look, it's a really tricky time because the government in the lead up to this budget, certainly before the election and just after the election, were talking about bringing that stimulus spending back. They were reducing the deficit, reducing that stimulus spending. But now we've got this kind of uncertain time. So it'll be really interesting to see what the government actually decides to do. Does it try and reduce the deficit and risk or increase the risk of a recession, or does it play it safe and go, well, actually, we're gonna keep that stimulus spending in for just a bit longer until we know what the impact of these interest rate increases are. We know what the impact of the world economy slowing down.
So you didn't answer what they're going to do.
No, like a good economist, I am not going to tell you what the future holds because I have no idea.
But the good news is, so this budget in October is unusual. We usually have the budget in May. We're having a mini budget, the second budget for this year, that allows Labor to legislate some of their new policies. That's good. They got elected. They want to get on with things. But also means we'll have another budget in May. So we don't actually need a crystal ball for 12 months. We don't have to know exactly what's going to happen. And when it comes to taxing and spending policy, fiscal policy, changing your mind as the circumstances change is actually a pretty good idea.
That is the clever thing to do.
Yeah.
Find out what the economy is doing and then match your economic policy to the economy.
So the Reserve Bank meets every month and says, will we increase or decrease interest rates? Usually we do tax and spending policy once a year. Doing it twice a year in a time like this is probably a good idea.
If you enjoyed this episode of Ask an Economist, hit the like button and subscribe.